Hey, welcome to the Medium Games Finals. This is SSounder here along with Seanahan. Uh, we've
Hello,
got
hello.
we've got AJL 828 against the man 0613. Hey, we've just
This should be a good one.
yeah, just rolled our first board here. Yeah, go ahead.
The man had a bye in the quarterfinals due to their strong performance. Actually, AJL both had a bye, so both these two players won their groups and had the highest scores and have had to win a semifinal match. The man beat 6K3, and AJL beat uh, yourself, I believe.
Yes, that's right. Yep, they thrashed me good.
So this looks to be an interesting one. Chat's already pointing out some of the different combinations that you can do here. With Groom and with Fairy. Fairy does not say non-victory card, so you can put minus two coin token on distant lands, so it'll cost 3, and then Groom can gain distant lands, which you didn't have to play, but you get 4 points for doing it.
Okay, and that gives you the because distant lands is both an action card and a victory card. You get the double benefit.
It could be a little garbled for me. Are there people getting awkward sound? Oh, okay. That was just me. Yeah, so if you were building a normal engine, I would just open something like Forager. You can't really build a huge engine because you don't have villages here. But you go Forager and like Fairy and Barge, build up villages.
Yeah, and I'd imagine distant lands. I mean, obviously, yeah, with the fairy interaction, even without it, it seems like distant lands is going to be a pretty important way to score here as well.
Yeah, then the Animal Fair seems nice to be able to open when you can trash an Acropolis. Although I'm not sure how that plays if you're going for the Groom Distant Lands Rush.
So AJL does do the animal fair. It looks like the man is passing on that, or maybe they just didn't see it since they were first player here.
Yeah, I mean, I could believe in Double Forager, but I can also believe in like Animal Fair Forager Moneysh. I would be surely tempted to play for the Groom Distant Lands Rush.
Yeah, that seems. I mean, given that it's really hard to build an engine without villages here. That seems like clearly the best thing to do.
And you can gain some Foragers. Those seem like okay cards for that deck early on before you go hard into the Grooms. And yeah, obviously you do need to play the distant lands to see the points. Although if you just empty out the distant lands and empty out the estates, you don't really care if you don't have to play them all.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, neither player touching the fairy event, which I guess if you're not doing the groom's distant land thing makes sense because there's not really anything else that looks all that attractive to fairy.
Yeah, really the only thing you can do is you can get Necropolis and play 2 duration barges every turn. So you start within 11 card hand, and if your deck is only 11 cards, then you can draw them all with that. Do something, but that seems pretty tough to set up.
Yeah, I'm not sure given the line each player has taken. I'm not sure that you want an animal fair in your deck right off the start here, do you?
I mean, if you're drawing with barges, you're going to have significant terminal issues, and giving up the Necropolis for the Animal Fair just makes those terminal issues worse.
Yeah, and it's going to be a while before it produces an extra buy, which really isn't all that important with Forager and Barge anyway. Okay, we've got a ferry token now on distant lands.
Yeah, the problem with distant lands here, if you're not going for the rush with grooms, is that you don't have that much terminal space.
Right, you probably only want one of them per shuffle.
And you still have your barge and your animal fair and no necropolis. So there's some various terminal problems that you've got for both players. Pivoting to a rush is not really something you ever want to hear. I don't know if I've ever actually heard that phrase before. Because the point of a rush is there's no time to pivot to it. If you haven't seen it and done it from the beginning, by the time you get there, your opponent will be emptying the piles out.
Yeah, Andy says that's what you do when you miss it. When you don't see it at the beginning, but now realize that might be the best thing to do. Interesting, the man picks up the groom, but AJL's the one with the token on distant lands.
Yeah, we'll see if the man picked up the groom because that's 4, and then you can ferry later. The nice thing is the groom can gain grooms in the interim while you're waiting to start gaining the distant lands. But I certainly think if you wanted to delay it, you could open like Forager Groom and then use the Groom to gain like another Forager and Groom, get a bit of stuff in the deck, and then go for the distant lands with the Grooms in deck and the thinning from the Forager.
Right. Yeah.
AGL, meanwhile, has just added a ton of money to the deck and is provincing.
Yeah.
I guess Groom distant lands, you gain a horse. Like that horse really does let you cycle fairly decently. It's plus card action horse from the Molten types.
Right.
We'll see if that's what they grab here.
Certainly makes the most sense. Ooh, I don't like this. I guess they're getting pretty thin, so they can probably handle the silvers in their deck. But yeah, it's a shame to ferry the distant lands and not take it with the groom.
Yeah, especially because it's somewhat action neutral. You can gain, in theory, with the Necropolis, you can gain a distant lands and play it every turn if you're drawing deck. Maybe they're just going to trash these silvers with their 2 foragers, and then they'll be worth. There's already silver in the trash. So I guess I'm not really seeing. Certainly, there's a spot here you can draw with this barge. You can groom to gain the distant lands. You can trash 2 coppers. You can even, I guess, I really want to trash here, but I guess they're not gonna.
Ooh, grooming for a state. I guess they're not understanding with the cost reduction token you can groom for a DL.
Yeah, I think they are not moving their eyes across the kingdom when they're clicking that, because they're clicking on DLs.
They're clicking on it when they buy, just not with the groom.
And you really want to have a ton of grooms here for this rush strat.
Multiple
so I certainly would have taken it.
Get all those horses in your deck. Yeah.
Yeah, grooming for a state just seems bad. And giving AGL a significant chance here to just grab provinces and put themselves up enough.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, and the comments. I don't know that it's that they don't understand the rush. I think they just don't understand that since distant lands is now a 3-cost card, you can groom for it. Obviously, the man wants distant lands, wants to buy them, but isn't understanding that they can groom for them.
Yeah, we'll see if they figure that out at some point.
Hey,
okay.
There we go.
So again, I would certainly play that as this turn, so you can trash more, buy more grooms, play your other distant lands. Like this could very easily be buy 3 grooms for me on this turn.
Sure.
After trashing the copper. with the idea that you're going to get one distant land played next turn, and then gaining a bunch more, or a bunch of estates or whatever. And then the last turn you can not play the blue version. Once you've played the distant lands, you're going to have a big VP lead, one assumes, and you've got some pile pressure with the Grims.
Right.
I think Groom rushes are... I mean, this is a tricky Groom rush because you have to realize that Fairy lowers distant lands, which is an action, and then distant lands then looks like Island, except worth twice as many points.
Yeah.
And Groom Island is already a rush by itself, normally.
Yeah, you do have to play the distant lands. I guess early on you're not as concerned with playing them early in the game, but
Yeah, I mean, you are all technically correct in the chat, and I disagree with it entirely because I think what you're saying is functionally not correct, even though you are technically logically correct. Because you do have to play it, but it is not that hard to play, and it doesn't mean you can't just win the game and get distant lands. But my guess would be the Groom Rush would get one or two distant lands in play before the other player could buy even a single province. You'd have gained most of the distant lands and have a few in play. And again, this is a spot we just keep clicking on Grooms now, and then every time you see a Groom, you gain an estate. You just go to empty the piles. That seems pretty reasonable. You can also Fairy Groom here, because you've got a couple of plus buys with Forger. Potions. I consider the potion briefly. If you've got a couple of Grooms, a bunch of horses, you've got at least 8 distant lands potentially, then you can get some points out of the Vineyard. If you're a little bit slow in the rush and you want to try to make up a VP difference, that seems like a possibility. So here we should play the horse before we play the Groom to gain an estate.
right, keep the estate out of the shuffle.
Yeah, and I think we do want to lower estates, although there's not really a third pile. I guess this is, since we're not going for the rush, there's not really a third pile to consider.
Yeah, would you even
which is
consider grooming for grooms here before taking all these estates?
Well, that was why I wanted to buy 3 Grooms last turn.
Yeah.
To avoid this problem.
Yeah.
You don't really want there to be more estates more Grooms in the pile than the estates. You want to be, gaining a Groom every turn with Groom, and then the last Groom play of the turn, you gain an estate so that you can play a distant lands, something like that. And that seems a little bit risky there, not playing a distant lands, instead playing the duration bridge, but it looks like the man just has a ton more VP in their deck, and a village, which AJL does not have.
Yeah, and it looks like you hate having these dead cards, the distant lands, sitting in your deck every shuffle, but it does look like you've got some time to play them. I guess the game's going to end on provinces at this point, and there's 4 left, and neither player is in a position to be able to consistently province.
Yeah, and I think the man's got missed a duration barge, so they had 1 fewer action last turn, and now they've got a barge duration, so in theory they should be able to play 1 distant lands a turn. Play some horses, forge the estates if necessary. And then the deck gets thin again, and they may be able to even hit province.
Yeah, good point. They're definitely in a stronger position to do that. Yeah, it looks like both players on this turn will be able to grab provinces.
We'll see what the horse does.
Yeah.
This is tough. Do you really just want to keep gaining estates to draw on, but adding bad cards to your deck?
Yeah, it's a tough spot, no question. Yeah, and buying
You
the
could trash.
silvers doesn't seem great either.
You could trash Barge, trash Groom, play Distant Lands, buy a Province. It's a little bit sad to trash Barge, but you get a Distant Lands in play and get a Province this turn. That gives you a reasonable lead. Alternatively, you just keep gaining estates and hope to find the Necropolis, so you can play both the Barge and a Distant Lands.
Well, at this point, I think you do have to. If you're going to trash the Groom, I think you have to trash the Barge as well to make sure you province.
Yeah, I don't really get this
like
line.
That. Yeah, I don't like that at all.
But it pays off because they immediately draw the gold.
Yeah,
and
get a Distant Lands down.
Are able to have a nice turn.
Well, as AJL, do you province here?
Yeah, so they've got 2 Distant Lands in deck, and if they get them both in play, it's going to be the only way you win is by double provincing. So you just have to take a province here and hope to province again.
Yeah,
maybe I guess that's it.
Province estate even here.
Yeah,
forage the Barge and take province estate.
Yeah, that seems. Seems like the best way to go, and it's going to pay off. It looks like
they went double duchy though. But it looks like they're still in a strong enough position since they can province here.
Yeah. Wow.
Trash the Distant Lands. Interesting.
Figuring they're not going to get a chance to get it into play before the game is over.
Yeah.
But now AGL can fairly comfortably take a province.
Yeah.
Not sure I agree with that one, but it's tough. And now as AGL, you're gonna have to take a crying estate, it looks like.
Yeah. We'll see how the man draws here. They're potentially could pull this one out if they draw well with their Barge here.
Yeah, they just don't have a ton of money in the deck. It seems like it's going to be tough for them to get to 8 with dead drawing this Barge.
Okay. Maybe they saw AJL's hand and knew they were going to get another turn. That's pretty bad.
That's a lot of green cards.
It's a lot of green cards. They both have a lot of green cards now.
This is what the rush decks would have looked like on turn 12 if the game hadn't ended already.
Yeah.
But
grooming for potion. Okay, if they get
it looks like we're going to pile now on duchies. Yeah, the potion's,
Yeah, it's as good as
silvers.
It's as good as anything.
Potion will probably score you some, especially with all the Distant Lands and Grooms. They've got at least 9 actions in the deck. 10, 11, 12 actions maybe, so the Vineyard would be worth a duchy.
Yeah.
Or more than a duchy, potentially.
Okay.
This looks like it's going to be a win for AJL.
Yep. Yeah.
Most the man can get up to is 7, and that would be a losing tie anyways, if they could hit 8. And AJL's got 2 pileouts here. We'll see which one they go for. Okay, they go for the province.
All right. Well, that was an interesting first game.
Yeah, and AJL breaks serve there in the opening match. So.
Yep, 1-0, and they get to start game 2.
It looks like a more traditional engine type kingdom.
Yeah, draw looks a little tough to come by, but got
Um,
chapel for lots of trashing. I guess watchtower is going to be the main
yeah,
draw.
Watchtower Mill, and then Populate looks pretty good, especially with Watchtower. You can stack your deck. You can trash the chapel if you want. You can trash the Spice Merchant if you want. I think Pawn is so much worse at draw to X payload the mill that it's not quite worth mentioning. Um, sure, we do have Pig. I, Pawn is going to be your plus buy, I assume. You're not going to have any treasures left fairly quickly.
Right.
I think I'm opening Mill Chapel, but I could be convinced of Spice Merchant Chapel. Silver does not seem like it does you a lot of good. Obviously, getting an early Sculptor is quite nice, but mostly you want to gain these 4 costs and 3 costs in large quantities.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see the Spice Merchant Chapel open versus the Mill Chapel opening. Spice Merchant would definitely accelerate the trashing, but then it slows you down as far as building that draw to X deck.
Yeah, Silver Chapel is always a pretty sad opening. You can draw the silver with the chapel. You can miss, there's just a lot of, there's a higher chance of missing the chapel than if you pair it with a cantrip like Spice Merchant or Mill. And to answer St. Carl's question, I think Sculptor on every 5. Like until I think you'd take like 5 sculptors here, and often you're just going to be sculpting villages or mills or watchtowers or something. But
Yeah, the Sculptor plays reasonably well with the Watchtower draw, doesn't it? And accumulating the villagers is certainly key.
yeah, so we see the man's able to get a sculptor and trash 2 coppers, 2 estates. AJL's chapel misses the shuffle; they get another silver, a sculptor, and are able to trash 2 coppers and 2 estates. So certainly, AJL goes into the second shuffle behind a bit, and the man should just trash. I would have trashed everything, I think, but
Yeah, given that you already have a Sculptor where you can sculpt for silver, I think I would trash everything as well.
here they can do some nice lines with the pawn. They can do action buy, sculpt a silver, and then buy like a mill and a pawn. Potentially something like that. Or, yeah. And then end the turn with the villager.
Yeah,
And then next turn look to.
Horde doesn't seem great. You don't want to be greening and adding golds to your deck yet, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, I don't think you ever would want to get a Horde here. So, how can we make Horde good? Here's how we make Horde good. We buy a mill, and we turn the golds into changelings, and then we use the changelings to gain more sculptors.
Okay.
Seems a bit convoluted, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I assume this wants to be, Spice Merchant makes sense. Get you some early plus buy, finish thinning out the coppers, and mill seems like the best order right now.
Yeah.
Or I can also believe in Mountain Village because it lets you play your sculptor non-terminally.
Right.
Royal Seal is also really bad here.
Wow. Okay.
Especially because there's a better card that does the Royal Seal effect that you want to have in your deck anyways.
Now we got another Horde. Yeah, I guess we're not doing any, I guess we're not building any sort of engine to draw here, are we?
With populate, you can just do so much with the mills, and you can get extra stuff with changelings. You can gain changelings, gain mills. Like you can get this all these mill VP, and then you got a much better deck that can do a lot of stuff. And maybe you end up adding a gold or something. But the mill payload should be more than sufficient.
Yeah, that's right. When you populate, you can any one of those cards you can trade in. Well, I guess not the 2 cost, but any of the other action cards you can trade in for a changeling, right?
Yeah, and then changeling whatever thing you feel like you need to change. Sculptor, perhaps, but typically seems like the best. But then you get a big stack of pawns and sculptors and mills and watchtowers, and double provincing does not seem difficult, and that deck can even absorb provinces fairly well because it can discard them with the mill.
Yeah.
I don't know why AGL didn't play the. I would have played the. Well, they're not going for the engine, I guess. I would have played the Grapple as pig, and then.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you're not going for money, if you're just doing the money-ish thing, if you even need to get the channel. But I guess you probably can. But it looks like now we're just provincing. It was a little bit sad. This kingdom seems like it had potential to do some really cool.
Yeah, this
really
is
cool stuff.
A really neat board for Watchtower with Mill, Spice Merchant, Mountain Village. Obviously, being that your draw is limited to the draw to X, you're somewhat limited in what you can do. But I mean, if you get enough mills in your deck, you can keep drawing to 6 cards over and over again.
Yeah, and I'm thinking with Sculptor and Changelings, you should be able to just empty the mill pile pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I don't think you can absorb more than like 1 or 2 Changelings in a turn, just because it's hard to draw them with Watchtower. But like a beautiful dead draw of the worst card in the deck that you're happy to dead draw.
That's right.
We'll see now if the man is tracking their deck. It looks like they were. And this discard's got it's got their golds in it, the Horde, the Sculptor, so I assume you just pig the pawn.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think this is a good shuffle to trigger.
I'm interested in seeing the statistics on what percentage of times pawn is just a pig in its normal play. It seems like that's a pretty common thing.
Yeah, it does. I mean, obviously it's sad when you have to do that, but that's frequently the case.
There's a reason it costs 2.
Right.
So, for AGL here, this seems like a pretty straightforward game.
Sculpt a silver.
Silver, 5 province.
Yeah. Although I guess
and then the man's got a decision to make.
Well, the man's player too, right? So they would just province.
Oh, and they've seen the Sculptor now. I mean, they could, yeah, I guess they gain mill by province, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And then they've got a commanding lead.
Yeah, because then AJL is looking at, well, yeah, if they gain a mill, they can't even get a losing tie. But no matter what AJL has, that's safe. Sculpting for the mill and buying province.
Yeah, they just have to hope they can hit duchy or province next turn. But I would certainly do that here. I don't see any reason not to go in that way.
Yeah, they've got a ton of treasure in their deck, so it seems unlikely they would miss duchy next turn.
This is funny because normally when people say mill province, it means something different.
Right.
But I'm saying mill province here in the...
As in buy a mill.
Yeah, buy a mill. They get the duchy...
Whoa. Why did they go Duchy?
I'm okay with that. Really? I think they're thinking, what if they gain a mill in province? It's a losing tie. Maybe they're not considering that they're their first player.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I suppose there's some crazy world where they sculpt for a mill and play their pawn for plus buy.
Imagine you draw the 5 worst cards of your deck here and can't afford a Duchy next turn. You could lose, but I'm not even sure that there is a 5 card draw in the deck that gives that. Even if they gained and played a Spice Merchant and trashed Opera for plus buy, it doesn't seem like they can get anywhere close to the lead there.
Well, now if they just single province, they're going to lose.
Yeah, but they don't need to. They're just going to keep Duchy dancing.
Keep Duchy dancing, yeah, I suppose so.
With a half turn lead as second player.
Hopefully they don't get impatient here and deviate. That would be sad.
Yeah, so we see now if they'd gained this province last turn, they would have won this turn.
Yeah. Yeah, AJL can double Duchy, right?
Oh no.
They did buy the province. Wow.
They blinked a turn too late. If they province last turn, they win. If they province this turn, they lose. It's sad.
Wow. Okay, so that's 2 to AJL. Yeah, I'm not really following the thinking there.
The question is, with perfect draw last turn, what would perfect draw be? 3 golds, Sculptor, Hopper, Spice Merchant. Yeah, that's 6 cards. They can't. I'm trying to think of a card that let them do mill, province, estate last turn, and I don't think there is one. So I think that's a spot where AGL needs to think a little bit in both those 2 turns and say, what hand loses for me? This turn, next turn, and 2 turns ago there were no hands.
And
this turn there were specific hands.
Yeah. Sometimes those in-game spots are tricky when you're not tracking everything, but yeah.
Now this one looks like it's going to be a complicated one.
Wow, got everything here, don't you?
Yeah, and AGL just comes out of the gate with the 5-2.
Wow.
Which, as Chad points out, it's pretty sick, but there's not like great 4s. What are you doing? You're almsing for a silver? Like, you've got to get cat festivals and wharves and goons. It's just like, there's a lot going on here. The build orders does not seem trivial, but certainly 5-2 is a huge leg up.
Yeah, with alms on board. Yeah, I would guess the 5-2, you'd go what, Wharf Silver probably?
I think I'm going Doctor for sure.
Are you? Get to trash 2 cards right away is a pretty big...
And then alms for the silver the next turn.
Okay.
And then add Wharf Festival, Wharf Goons, something like that. And maybe even bargaining for some of those things along the way.
Yeah, but the 5 costs are so good here, and I'm not sure you really want any of the 4. I mean, eventually you probably want to add Conspirators to your deck, but I don't really think you need the other 4s, so you're probably going to be bargaining on 4.
Yeah. Here I think you take a silver. It was a very sad reveal, but they will be able to potentially trash a couple of states here.
Drawing is mediocre. It seems like this is a great board to draw on. I feel like with festivals and patrols and wharfs. I mean, obviously wharfs over patrols. Seems like the draw is real good here.
Yeah, you probably want to get at least a pair of wharfs before you get patrols, and maybe you just get all the wharfs that you can.
Yeah, I would think
Festival is less awkward as the only village when you have wharfs, though.
When you have what?
This I do not believe in. I really wanted to play Doctor to trash because I have 3 estates in those bottom 6 cards.
Oh yeah, you know you've got estates down there, don't you?
You
You're
know 3 out of 6, and so you're 50-50. Sorry, you're quite likely to trash 1. Decently likely to trash 2.
yeah, you're about 50% to be able to trash 2 estates there.
Yeah, and you're 90+% to trash 1.
Yeah.
But at the same point, again, where 3 is just a really sad price point. I think this turn could have been prevented with a doctor play last turn.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I really don't want more silvers in my deck.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, this is a spot. Yeah, maybe you pass.
I could be talked into a conspirator.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little earlier than you'd like to get a conspirator, but I suppose you could put one in your deck given that you got a festival already.
Yeah, the man really needs to find a spot to get a doctor. And Edge is going to hit 5, which I assume is just a wharf.
Yeah, I think I want to just keep pounding those wharfs as long as I've got the village support to be able to play them all.
Yeah, basically like alternating wharf for festival. Every buy. I got knocked out of the championship in a wharf festival kingdom where I kept star charting festival. I would star chart festival and then draw 3 festivals. And then no villages for the rest of my shuffle. And the next shuffle I star charted wharf and drew 3 wharfs. And it's just like, oh, this is fun. In theory, with horse traders, you can set up some kind of nice trap. In practice, it seems tough to do that. Yeah, that's a spot where the man should be deck tracking and see that they've got 6 money and that they've got at least 4 stop cards at the bottom of the deck.
Right. So that would be another spot where you could potentially doctor.
Yeah, because the value of thinning 3 cards from your deck is quite strong, and then you're getting them out of the way of the 2. So even if you're seeing your festival, festival's still a stop card here.
Yeah, I mean, you're almost at the point as the man where I guess you just keep building up draw, keep building up the festivals and wharfs, and hope you have enough draw to
Yeah,
get through all the junk.
this is a bit of a questionable shuffle trigger. I'm not 100% sure I wanted to trigger this shuffle here. With the stuff you're saying in play, missing this shuffle. We could have just played the Conspirator first and the Horse Traders and stuff and had a clean shuffle. I'm not sure if that's any better. I actually believe Jackal and 6 overpay. I'm going to thin my deck entirely. All I'm going to have left is 2 Doctors, 2 Coppers, and maybe 1 bottom deck card. And I will have a clean shuffle with my good stuff in it, which as we see here, all these top cards.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even consider Doctor overpaying here for, well, I guess you want to get a Goons into the deck, but
Yeah.
I feel like we can optimize this builder a little bit.
Yeah, the man has had some rough draws here, but obviously, a lot of that's self-inflicted when you don't thin.
Yeah. And Festival being Village is not, the greatest either.
Yeah, that makes it even more difficult to line up good draw.
Yeah, we'll see if AJL is able to capitalize on this. Again, we're seeing more terminals that it looks like than we have ability to play in the deck.
Yeah, what's the festival split? Does I assume the man has the advantage there? But at this point, you probably do want to.
3-4.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. This is not a good spot to doctor. Is it? It's a crazy argument that you doctor overpay 2 here just to trigger a shuffle with all this stuff missing and then bargain for another festival.
Yeah.
That maybe I think is too fancy, but it doesn't seem like inherently crazy. So AJL can play the goons here, play the doctor, and I hope they have. Okay, they have one copper, but we're just seeing that they're a lot thinner, and this deck is able to do a lot more.
Yeah. They may want to grab a couple festivals here.
Yeah, like Festival, Wharf.
Wharf, yeah.
Bargain.
Yeah, I like that.
I think 3 festivals is too greedy. You're not able to draw them currently.
Yeah, I like the 2 festivals and a wharf.
I believe in that line as well.
Or just take all.
You don't actually need that many terminals with festivals if you can get the overlapping stuff going.
Right. Yeah, that's the nice thing about wharf.
And now we need to look for, well, sadly they bottom decked all the festivals this shuffle. I guess they only have a few more. But here they can buy another festival and figure out what they want to pair it with.
Goons or patrol? Assemble Me says a couple conspirators. That could be reasonable.
Yeah, I think I'm at the point when I don't want to bargain for anything. I'm not getting goons points, and the horses do help. Maybe Festival Patrol. Maybe just Festival Goons. I think either of those seem fine to me. You've got 2 wharves coming into play, so you've got a decent chance of getting more in play next turn. You've got 1 more wharf for the shuffle.
Whoa, I don't like the duchy.
Yeah, duchy seems early. I think if you get deck control here, get a couple of goons into play. You know, if you can get 3 wharves coming into play, overlapping, and then get 3 goons, you can just build up VP so quickly.
Yeah, I want another goons and collect VP that way.
We can even do the fun goons trick of buying copper doctor every turn.
Oh.
And if you've got a way to discard, like with horse traders or something, discard the doctor, then you can kind of get a golden deck going.
Interesting.
That's a fun little pattern. I don't know if it's any good here, but that's at least fun to do. And if draw and villages are tight like they are here, you can build up a little kind of golden deck almost with all the wharves.
Yeah.
I
think here I want patrol goons is the man with 11. They have enough villages to support that, but they're greening also.
Yeah, I mean the thing with goons is you don't really need to green.
Right.
You can just keep building an engine, and on the last turn of the game, have 11 buys and buy out the estates, which in fact we can do here for a win.
Yep.
So the province didn't matter either way, the amount of points we scored. But
yeah, the province or the duchy didn't matter at all.
So AJL did have the luckier open there for certain, but I think the man had some opportunities where they could have done some doctor stuff themselves, get clean, trigger better shuffles, and then take advantage of some of AJL's play other things that they could have done better.
All right, so on to game 4.
That is not correct. Wait, first to 3.5. Yeah. If it's tied, they play till 7 wins. That is correct.
That is correct.
The finals will be first to 3.5 or first to win a game in game 6. So this is game 4. So I was thinking it's a tie,
But yeah, no, it's first to 3.5. So even though if you played all 7 games, technically it could end a tie. We just call it it's first to 3.5 rather than technically best of 7.
yeah. I think 2-5 here is good, but not great. I think I'm pretty happy to open Spice Merchant Shantytown. It cycles a little bit nicer than Native Village Treasure.
Yeah.
And then you want to add a patron to Shantytown. Let's look at the text of Archive. It does not say reveal. Fun fact, Harvest does say reveal, as does Shantytown. So if you have a hand with a Shantytown and 4 patrons, you can play the Shantytown for 4 coffers. However, I kind of want to play 4 patrons and use the Shantytown to draw in that situation. So
yeah, probably.
It's still pretty nice because you're gaining villagers in that. So yeah, certainly you want to grab a treasure. I think as the densest payload. Although, I think you want to grab a treasure in this kingdom at some point, anyways. But then fill your hands with patrons and shanty towns and archives and boats, and you can do a lot of stuff here. I think.
And I think I take the free native village too. That's a good way to put some cards aside initially, and you're going to need the village.
Yeah, especially because I want to do things like treasurer gaining a copper and then spice merchant trashing it for coins buy later on in the kingdom potentially. Once I've thinned all my coppers, I've got room for that. So I want to add the native villages and the shanty towns help with that as well. But maybe we're just building towards a deck that can pretty quickly grab single provinces with the patron coffers. Academy does look skippable to me. Silver looks skippable to me. I don't know that I ever bought silver in this kingdom. I think I either want Shanny or a patron every time I have 3 or 4.
Yeah, you're using treasurer and patron as payload. I suppose eventually you can, take the coins and buy it from the spice merchant as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that you ever buy Harvest here. Harvest is obviously generally pretty bad, but I guess if you get enough patrons in your deck, maybe adding a Harvest if you can support it as a terminal isn't so bad.
Yeah, I guess the thing is treasure is giving you +3 money anyways, so
yeah, it's almost always going to be better than
Harvesting 2 patrons.
Yeah.
This is a spot for AJL when they might take an academy. They won't really want a second treasurer, especially with the spice merchant. So the academy lets them sort of cram in moats and stuff, and lets them do more.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not like I need to get academy. It's the point of the game when it seems reasonable to me.
Sure.
The salvager also seems important because you do not want to have these estates in the deck. So that looks like AJL's priority this turn should be to buy a salvager. They get the academy. Certainly I like getting the academy before the second treasurer. You get
then you have the villager to support it.
Yeah, but I certainly want to be thinning my estates and coppers, and then doing all the tricks we mentioned with patrons and shanty towns. One fun thing about this kingdom is, if people in the chat are saying, Andy said, I think that patron shanty town's not that inspiring. It's not, but it's pretty decent. Like you're getting a deck that's able to get provinces very quickly, 1 per turn, and then you add the treasurer stuff, the gaining the copper, the salvage, and if you have provinces, you can salvage provinces to mill the provinces. If you have a gold, you can salvage a gold for +6 and gain another treasure with the treasurer. So the hand of salvager, treasurer, gold nets 12 coins for 3 cards. And a buy, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and with Native Village being the other village, I guess they're both going to rely on academy villagers here, but at some point those are going to run out if you don't add villagers. If you don't have patrons or one of the 2 villages,
I mean, but if you draw a hand of 3 shanties and 2 patrons, you play 2 shanties, then get 4 coffers, then you play the 2 patrons. You still have 1 action, so like you're netting a ton of villagers that way too. So I think there's just a lot of cool things that you get with that deck. AGL got an archive. I strongly want them to get a salvager. It seems like the most important card for their deck. And they can turn those estates into money, which they can use to buy patrons.
Yeah.
Which are cards that I want in this deck, patrons.
Well, this would be a good turn for AJL to pick up the salvager. Trash a copper and buy a salvager.
Yeah, I don't really see a need to play the second treasurer this turn. Another spice merchant. It seems like they're going to be both action limited and copper limited to make that work.
Yeah, they just don't have the treasures in the deck. I mean, like you said, you can pick them up with treasurer, but
you've got to draw them first, and the estate's getting away.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, was it AGL who passed up free native village on turn 1?
Yes.
And here, I kind of just want 2 patrons. Yeah, I kind of just want 2 patrons here as the man.
Yeah, you don't really need any more archives, do you? You're getting thin enough where you don't necessarily need that.
Yeah, you've got 3 sources of +5 potentially with salvage or patron. But I certainly want to add all the pieces.
So they do get 2 patrons.
As AGL here, I'm pretty happy taking a shanty town and a patron.
Yeah, we got our first shanty purchase.
And man, I think I'm advocating the same line on a shanty town and a patron. I certainly wanted Shantytown over Silver at the beginning of the game. The advantage to opening Shantytown with a non-terminal 4, either Spice Merchant or Patron, is that you can play if you draw them collided, you can play the Spice Merchant and then the Shantytown, or vice versa. And if you don't draw them collided, then you could play the Shantytown and potentially draw one of those. So Shantytown is basically a lab that first shuffle because you've got Patron or Spice Merchant.
Right. Yeah, obviously it gets harder to do as the game goes on, but that's really nice to get off to a good start that way.
I think the thing with this kingdom is it's not actually harder to do that as the game goes on. So here I'd definitely gain a copper, play the Shantytown first for the actions, then we can do the spinning stuff. I guess we drew the same 2 cards, so we can play the Shantytown again. And I believe the bottom 2 cards are both estates, so we desperately want to draw them. Oh, one of them was a patron. Okay.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that they had trashed. How did they get rid of? Oh, it's in the archive probably, right?
Yeah, it's on the archive mat.
Okay.
They could have taken that Spice Merchant as point buy and gotten a little bit more out of that. Instead, go for the early points. I think I'm okay with that from the current game state. I certainly feel like both players should have built more, but the decks are in such a state that I don't think they're going to build to double province fast enough to catch up.
Right. They're both kind of at that stage where they're kind of built to single anyway.
I would probably continue building here as the man, and just make the claim that I can double starting in 2 turns, and you can't single reliably with your current deck. That being said, I don't think that's the case. I think AGL can very reliably single.
Yeah, I would think so at this stage. They got a pretty thin deck. They've got treasurers, patrons. They may miss. They may miss once, but it doesn't seem like they're going to miss very often.
And they're able to be fairly cavalier with these villagers, which is actually pretty reasonable, because they have, enough of them that they can waste them. I think they do want to try to look for a spot where they can do plus buy, even just like a moat, adding a moat to the deck. That little bit of extra draw for AJL would do a ton, and able to get more coins and buys every turn. We'll see what the man is able to do.
Yeah, kind of a tough spot for them. I guess they're going to continue to build, but they are falling behind point-wise pretty significantly. It's going to be hard for them to close this point gap, even though they're building a better deck.
Well, they don't have any Shantytowns. That seems pretty concerning to me. Shantytown seems like the key cog in the wheel here.
Yeah.
And AGL, I think, should just take the key here. What do you like better, the key, a coffer, or a villager? I guess those are the three choices you have.
I think I take the key.
You take the key and then spend a coffer, or spend a villager? Spend a coffer. Yeah, that's what.
Coffer? Yeah, I can see that.
The advantage to having 3 coffers is that if you do end up dudding with a treasurer and patron, you can hit 5. You can hit 8 still. The advantage here, of course, is you can play more things. So again, this is fine. We can play the Spice Merchant. Weirdly.
Yeah, and not
the weird use of a Spice Merchant.
just to clear.
And yeah, I guess I can believe in Shantytown or Patron here.
Yeah.
I think those are the only. I can also believe in Salvager now that they have all these provinces. Salvager can mill. We knew that turn was going to be dicey because they'd had this out of play, and if they didn't draw the archive near the top of the shuffle, their deck was significantly lower in draw.
So they got 3 off their harvest. Unfortunately,
but no coffers.
Yeah, and no plus buy on that turn with only 1 salvager in their deck. Or no, they do have 2 salvagers.
So take a province here as AJL for sure.
Yeah.
And then do gain a copper here, I think.
Yeah.
Because we're just trying to lower quickly.
Yeah. Seems good.
I really feel like AJL's deck, just 1 salvager purchase early on would have sped them up like a full turn now. So at the cost of 3 estates, they would have an extra province by now, if not more.
Yeah.
I guess you take the silk here for coin buy. Yeah, I would have taken the spice there for coin buy and left the treasure on the mat. The rest of this shuffle looks pretty dicey for AJL. I guess they've got their patrons, but this is all of their treasurers. But I think the man has realized that VP lead is too much.
Yep.
Very nicely played by AJL. Solid win. Over the 1 seed. And then the man takes second. And morally speaking, since SSounder lost to AJL, you're kind of second as well.
We can call it third. That's fine.
Yeah. And yeah, congrats to both these players. Obviously, they're in medium games. You can tell, see them getting better and peaking near the end of the tournament. Obviously, AJL had a good run out tonight.
Yeah,
but it's certainly closer than the final score shows.
Yeah, they had a really strong group stage, tied with the man with 11 wins overall, and then they just blitzed right through the playoffs. So, yeah, very, very deserved championship to them.
See if they're going to sign up for big games, the next edition that's coming out.
Yeah, we've had a good track record of people winning medium games and moving up to big games and being very competitive and competing for the win there as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So excited to see that. Thank you for hosting the commentary and for being the main narrator for medium games.
Yep, it's been a fun season.
Thanks to all the players who participated.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Seanahan.
Thank you, SSounder.
All right. Good night, everyone.